Tears are not my enemy. That's the topic we are exploring today. Basically, tears meaning the cry here, and the crying is not supposed to be considered as something um, bad or something weak like we usually do, especially in the society, more for men. So I think I read this research about how the emotional tears are different from the onion tears or the reflex action. Because when we cry out of pain or some heavy emotions, it was found that the tears contain some kind of stress hormones in it, versus the reflex cry was just some salt and water trying my body trying to protect my eyes. So that is when I think they started exploring a little bit on how to make this crying normal or normalized just as any other emotion. So emotional crying is more like healthy biological process. It's a process for my body, for my nervous system to relax and to come back to normalcy. And this is something we see in our day to day life. You know, some of us are hardened. We just cannot cry. I had a situation when a mother passed away and the daughter just couldn't cry. I mean, she was maybe out of shock. She was frozen, unable to let out the emotions. And this is a surface level assessment, maybe not. But then going deeper, why am I unable to let out my emotions? Why the shock freezes me is something to explore, especially when children do not express themselves. You know, we do have this conditioning, especially for boys. Don't cry, stop crying. Strong boys don't cry. Strong girls don't cry loudly. You don't cry for silly things. You need to be brave. What are we trying to do? I sometimes feel that I as an adult am unable to handle the pain that the other person is going through, expressing through cry, and I don't know what else to do. He said, okay, console yourself. You see that when death happens in any family, family is grieving, and people who come to see, they keep telling, no, it's okay, it happens, this is life. And rather than just sit quiet, allow them to cry. I mean, that's what I would prefer. Don't do anything, just be next to them, understand that they go through it, let them know that you are there, just allow it to happen. And if we can do something similar for children, especially, because especially these days, I mean, there are also lots of media telling children how to be brave and how to not give up and how to not cry. But then how will I discharge my overwhelm? How will I regulate my stress? Girls, especially when they go through their puberty and there's hormonal imbalances, they just cry for no reason. There is no reason, especially during depression. Any and women during postpartum, after delivery, during delivery, during the periods, during the menopause, we just break down. I mean, maybe there is a reason when we go really deep inside, but on the surface we just drop. And then it's like, oh, she's a crybaby. She just whines. She just breaks down for anything. And you're not allowed to. I had one employer, the principal of a school. She just couldn't handle anybody crying. And one teacher we had to let go, and she was the breadwinner of the family. So the teacher came back requesting, give me anything, I will do anything, please keep me in the job. And she was just crying, and she's like, stop crying first, stop crying first. just shut, otherwise get out of my office, we cannot even talk. Maybe similar condition the teacher had as a childhood, and she just couldn't handle the emotion of not being able to provide for the family, and she had to break down. And of course, it's professional environment, and it's I understand when I sit in that chair and everybody comes to me crying at the drop of the hat. Now, why do we cry at the drop of the hat? That's where we need to explore, reconnecting emotionally with them. What tension are they going through? I mean, all of us are going through one or the other. Some of us can manage. Some of us who have, or who develop healthy ways to balance our nervous system. Maybe you have daily rhythm of meditation or journaling, or have a very good support, maybe a brother, a parent in the family who you can share with, who won't accumulate over years. Otherwise, children learn to suppress. Children learn to numb it out. They don't even feel. They can't even cry when they have to. And they appear brave. I lose a job and it's okay. I can find another. Saying that it's okay, I will find another one in the right space is fantastic. But saying it out of disconnection is something that will hurt. Or intellectualizing feelings. Yeah, yeah, I know, I can go find another job. There's no big deal. This job was not meant for me. You know, bypassing, not accepting. Or sometimes we just explode. I had a relative one time, she didn't have a very happy marriage. And at one time, she did tell me, I've cried so much in this marriage that my tears have dried up. I can't even cry anymore. She had become so hardened, so disconnected, so disrespectful towards everybody. She thought she was the only one for herself and she had to manage. Total disconnection. So that is why somewhere, I as a parent or a teacher, um, instead of thinking, how do I make my child stop crying? If I can ask myself, how can I help my child move safely through these emotional waves? Definitely, second stage of child development for the child is not going to be an easy one, especially now where there is not much of a family support, where there is a lot of competition out there, and children are kept busy, after school, before school, and they just don't know how to handle. So if I understand that crying is just the way that the body is learning to balance itself, then understanding that this emotional crying is de-stressing oneself, then I can accept, even if I don't know what to do, just sit with the child and let them go through. And it's unbelievable how much um, emotions we have pent up. I was part. The first time I found myself crying was, I don't know if any of you have seen this movie, a dance movie by Kamal Hassan, Sagara Sangamam. I never understood the language. I don't speak Telugu, but it was a scene when, I mean, he's acted out very well also in that particular. His mother passes away, and he just is uncontrollable. And watching him, I was totally uncontrollable. I was probably in my eighth or ninth grade at that time, and I did not know why I was crying that bad. And later on, many many years later, I found that my father was driver in railways, and I had watched movie Sholay, and somewhere the driver gets killed, and I knew or somehow believed my father would get killed whenever he went out on the duty. And I used to be so stressed until he came back home. And his coming back home was not known. He used to work on the goods train. Sometimes it would be 4 days, sometimes 8 days. We never knew. So that added a lot of stress in me, and this particular scene helped me release it. I watched that movie 6 or 7 times, and every time I broke down like that. And every time I broke down, many years later, one of my close uncles passed away. I just broke down the same way. My father in law passed away. I broke down the same way. And somewhere that was still not completely healed. However, when my father passed away, I did not break down that much at all. I felt the grief, but I think it was a process also. He was sick for a long time, and I was ready to let him go. Right. So we don't know what is it that I'm holding within me. It could come out in different ways. It may not be crying. When I suppress my emotional expression, it could turn into anxiety, it could turn into headache, it could become digestive issues, I could become irritable. There are so many other ways that we get into panics and tensions and outbursts. And sometimes also we want this to be perfect. Perfectionism comes from that fear of not wanting to be corrected by somebody, labeled by somebody, and thereby me being put emotionally down. Sometimes I go into people pleasing. So many weird ways happen, and we wonder what's happening. It shows up in my body too. Backache, stomach ache, unable to get interest. I could be chronically depressed, not interested in anything. I could become dumb. I won't be able to pay attention to the studies, and therefore I cannot absorb what I'm reading, and I'm lost. And no matter how many hours I sit before the book, nothing is going into my head. Lot of different things happen. So somewhere as a parent, as a teacher, I need to be telling anyone who is emotionally stressed, I am here. That's it. You don't have to say, I'll help you, do this, do that, heal over this. No, I'm just here. Whatever you need, I'm here. That's the feeling. It's not the words, it's the feeling I need to give. I used to be very apprehensive about visiting anybody who had lost a dear one, and I would avoid. And then my mentor mentioned to me, just go, you don't have to say a word, sit next to the person, hold them for a few minutes, and come back. That's all. Saying that I am here. You can let it out. Your feelings are safe with me. You can share your feelings with me. Tell me, how can I help you? Take your time, no rush. I see that happening in all these meditation videos. They ask us to close our eyes, and then take your time before opening your eyes, and immediately rub your palms and put them on your eyes. So that's not enough time. But of course, those are videos and they need to be fast. But anyway, I need to be teaching them emotional literacy. I need to bring that. How to regulate my own nervous system when it breaks down. How to trust. That builds resilience. That awareness I need to bring in the children, maybe in adults too, as an adult who understands what this crying is all about. Thank you.